Hello there. This presentation is to show the analysis conducted by CARES on racial disparity. This analysis was conducted on COCs that are one single county, and the reason for that is because they are compared against census data, which is often accessible by county level. So it was easiest to compare a county level COC with county level demographic data. So let's get started and look at our methodology. First, we collected the COC level data from Stella P and HDX2. This is achieved by requesting a full analysis file in the LSA dataset. Step 2 is where we collected county level demographic data from the census website. 3 is we combine the data by COC/county. 4th, we visualize the data. And 5th, we noted key findings. So some key definitions that we want to bring up to your attention so you understand how this comparison works. The first starts with the race. So it appears that Stella P does follow the same race standards that the US Census does. They just don't document it as explicitly. So here we can see that race and ethnicity are separate concepts. So for example, you can have multiple races and be Hispanic or non-Hispanic. Hispanic is not a race. You can be white and Hispanic or black and Hispanic, etc. Now you can also see that we have multiple categories for the races. We have white, black or African American, American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, or 2 or more races. One thing I'll note is in Stella P they also have an unknown one because sometimes we don't collect the race of our clients for whatever reason. The census doesn't have an unknown, so you'll just see that one always at 0. Please note that this census data is released as of 2019, and we'll look at the Stella P data. And the Stella P data right here is actually from 2017 to 2018. Now, I bring up the report period first because population doesn't change that much from year to year, and they're actually just slight estimate updates. So using the 2019 published census data, which was mostly collected in 2018, that is completely fine and safe for the most part. There's really going to be no major differences unless you knew about a major extreme event that would influence the data. So we're looking at race and ethnicity of head of household and adults. So this is not every single person served in the homelessness system in Stella P. These are all the head of households and adults. And once again, they also separate your Hispanic Latino from for your certain race categories if applicable. So we do want to compare that again. The general population from the census is all people versus our Stella P data is actually head of households and adults. So for example, in Albany, it's like 2,000 individuals in the system with like 1,688 head of households and adults. So it's not a major difference, but there is a significant loss. What communities did we choose? So once again, we did all the communities that were a single county. So for example, Saratoga, North Country, there's multiple counties there, so that one's a little bit harder. But Albany, Schenectady, Rensselaer, Dutchess, Orange, and Ulster, all really great candidates for this analysis. Very easy to pull it off Stella P's data set and also from the census data set. So first we're going to start with New York 503. This is the Albany County COC. And notice that the dark blue is the Stella data percentages and the light blue is the census data percentages. So what does that mean? So when you look at the census, that is the percent of the population. So in this case, 14% of 14% of the population in Albany County is Black or African American, versus 55% is actually comprises those people served in the homelessness system, the HMIS data collected in Albany County. So again, from 14% of the population, but being 55% of those served, that is a major disparity right there. Now, looking the other way, we can see that white non-Hispanic individuals make up 72% of the population, but they only make up 31% of those served in the homeless system. So that's not even, that's actually less than half of its percentage. So that's a major significance right there. And something else that you can notice here is white people who are Hispanic or Latino ethnicity. They're about on par with the percentage of the population and the percentage of those in the homeless system. What I'm curious to see, and the data wasn't available easily, to see the difference between Black and Hispanic Latinos. I imagine that they would make up few percent of the census data, but larger percent of the homelessness system comparatively. And one other thing to notice is right here, the Asian population makes up 7% of Albany County, but not even 1% of the homelessness system are those served. So it's interesting right there. Now we can move on to New York 507 right here, Schenectady County COC. And we see a much similar pattern. So once again, although white non-Hispanic make up 73% of the census population in the county, they are only a third of those served in the homelessness system according to the HYS. Now, a similar thing here, only 13% of the population is Black or African American, yet they make up half of the homelessness system and those served. White and Hispanics, we see again very close relationship, but a little bit more of those Hispanic need to be served. So this isn't a significant value. One thing we did do throughout the entire analysis is mostly look at these two group-ins for all of the communities. And we did statistical tests to make sure that they weren't by chance. They weren't by random, sample and error. And after doing a two-tailed sample test, we did find out that all these values are significant and they're not by random chance of error. There is a significant influencer or factor causing these major differences. Once you get into the smaller groups though, it gets a little bit harder because when there's less than, let's say, 50 people who make up that percentage, the sample is too small to actually identify if it's a random chance of error or not. So when we get to these percentages, these are a little bit harder. They're on the cusp. And when we get down here, they're basically not significant at all. Something, again, interesting, just a 1-to-5 ratio here for Asian, for those who make up the homelessness system versus of the entire population. Now we can move on to Rensselaer County, New York 512. Similar pattern here. So 83% of the population is white, non-Hispanic, but about 48% of them make up those served in the homelessness community. 37% are Black or African American in the homelessness community in this reported period, and they only make up 8% of the population though. So that's actually nearly 5 times as much. That's a major concern there. White, Hispanic, Latino, again, we are seeing a slight increase here. Nothing huge to say there is a major systemic thing, but once again, if we did break out Black, Hispanic, I imagine then we would actually see possibly another indicator that would tell us what possibly could be going on. And then Asian, once again, we just see just a gap here. Moving on to New York 601, this is Dutchess County, Poughkeepsie. And we can see that 71% of the population is white, non-Hispanic, and 44% of the homelessness system is white or non-Hispanic. So again, there is a significant gap there. And again, on the flip side, only 12% of the community is Black or African American, but they make up more percentage of the homelessness system than white non-Hispanics. So again, just disparity is very obvious here. And then for white, Hispanic, in Dutchess County, we do notice that actually there's fewer folks who are white and Hispanic inside the homelessness system compared to their population proportion. And again, the same pattern with Asian, always significantly lower, if not close to 0. New York 602, this is Orange County. And we can see a 30% gap, which comparatively is still relatively really bad. Um, and then if you look at white Hispanic right here, we also see that gap again, this time by 5 percentage points. So this is more likely to be significant. And then we see over here 13% of the population is Black or African American, yet 47% make 47% of those served adults and head of households in the homelessness systems in the reporting period were Black or African American. So that's a major gap. It's almost 4 times as much again. And again, almost a dramatic difference with Asian. Now we can move on to our last community. Near at 608, this is Ulster County. And so right here we can see that these values are basically on par. So again, I'm curious to look more into the Black Hispanic community numbers than the white to see if we can see a little bit more going on there. And then for white non-Hispanic, they make up almost 80% of the population, with just a little bit more than a majority of those served in the homeless community. And then once again, almost 4 times as much of the population that is Black or African American is actually representative in the homeless community. And once again, we see the Asian here, but not as drastic because just a smaller representation of the Asian community. So altogether, this kind of tells us that yes, what we knew about things anecdotally, that there are racial inequities, we can see very flat and plain. There's no questions about it. Now, the next thing we need to do is have a long-term approach, a intercommunity, and interregional relationship to really partner to identify how do we really take down these structural inequalities, because the institutions have built a lot of these problems, and there has to be a multifaceted approach to tackle homelessness. It's not just COC funding, it's not just planning, it's not just HMIS tracking, it's a huge plethora of options and combinations of solutions, whether it's community-driven, government-driven, or a combination of the both, even with a partnership with for-profit businesses. There's a lot of ways we can get out there, but we have to make sure that we recognize the issue, continue measuring it, and acting on it, and not letting this, go to the wayside. Continue to work on this year over year until we start to see major progress, and eventually we won't have to do disparity analysis anymore. So I hope you found this interesting. Please reach out if you want to view the data set or you have any questions about this presentation. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.